Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive? This one's a heavy hitter, folks, involving some huge names in music and some really serious accusations. And it's all over the news. CNN, NBC, Fox News, you name it.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that really makes you think about the impact, not just on the celebrities involved, but, on regular people too.
Absolutely. So let's break it down. We're talking about a woman, Jane Doe, accusing both Sean Diddy Combs and Jay-Z of sexual assault. This allegedly happened way back in 2000 at a party after the MTV Video Music Awards. And get this, she was only 13 years old at the time.
Yeah, and the lawsuit itself, it lays out some really disturbing stuff. Doe claims she was given a drink that she thinks was spiked and went to lie down in a bedroom. And that's when she says both Combs and Carter, Jay-Z, came in and assaulted her.
It's important to remember these are just allegations at this point.
Right, of course, of course. But they're definitely serious allegations.
Absolutely. Now, Doe claims Carter, Jay-Z, assaulted her first, while Combs and another woman were present. Then she alleges Combs assaulted her, while Carter and the woman watched. She even says she tried to fight back when Combs tried to force her to perform oral sex, hitting him in the neck to make him stop.
It's a tough story, and to make things even more complicated, this lawsuit comes when Combs is already facing other legal issues.
Right. He's dealing with some federal charges, too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's actually in jail right now, awaiting trial for charges related to sex trafficking and racketeering.
Whoa, okay, hold on. For those of us who aren't lawyers, what exactly is racketeering?
Well, it basically means you're engaged in illegal activities, usually as part of like an organized group, kind of like, a criminal enterprise. In Combs' case, the charges allege he was involved in a sex trafficking ring.
So these new accusations are on top of those charges.
Exactly. And his legal team has denied everything, both these new accusations and the previous ones. They're calling this new lawsuit a publicity stunt, basically saying it's all about trying to get money from Combs.
Gotcha. But what about Jay-Z? He's not facing those other charges, right? So what's been his response to this lawsuit?
Oh, he's denied it just as strongly, called the allegations heinous and idiotic. He's actually even gone a step further. He's accusing Doe's lawyer, Tony Busby, of blackmailing him. And he's filed his own lawsuit against Busby.
Whoa, so now we've got lawsuits flying every which way. Things are getting complicated. But before we get totally lost in all the legal stuff, I think it's important to kind of step back for a second and think about, how situations like this, whether they end up being true or not, how they impact us, regular folks.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. When you have these accusations against people who are so, high profile, it really gets people talking about things like power and consent and how hard it can be to get justice. And those are things that everyone can relate to, right? No matter who you are or what you do.
Yeah, it makes you think about how these power dynamics play out everywhere, not just in Hollywood or the music industry, but, in our own lives, workplaces, even families.
Right, and it really highlights, how someone with less power might be afraid to come forward, especially if they're accusing someone who's, rich and famous.
And it makes you wonder how many people have experienced something like this, but never felt like they could speak up.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. And it's not just about these specific accusations against Diddy and Jay-Z. Even if those turn out to be false, the fact that they're out there makes people look at the whole music industry differently, makes you wonder if there's something, is something wrong with the culture that lets this kind of behavior happen.
Okay, so we've got the basic accusations and the responses. Diddy facing all these legal battles, denying everything. Jay-Z fighting back with his own lawsuit. But now I'm really curious about this lawyer, this Tony Busby guy. He seems to be right in the middle of this whole thing, and I have a feeling there's more to his story.
Yeah, you're right on the money there. He's a big-time Texas lawyer, known for taking on these really high-profile cases, but there's a twist.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Tell me more.
Well, another celebrity, they're staying anonymous for now, has also filed a lawsuit against Busby. And they're accusing him of trying to extort money, saying Busby threatened to make up sexual assault allegations if the celebrity didn't pay him off.
Wait, so Busby's being accused of the same thing he's accusing Diddy and Jay-Z of doing?
Yep, that's right. It's definitely a messy situation, accusations flying left and right. Busby, of course, denies these extortion claims. He says he's just trying to fight for victims of sexual assault.
So what does all this mean for, us regular people?
I think it shows just how important it is to think critically and remember that there are usually multiple sides to every story. It's not always black and white. And it reminds us that even in the legal system, which is supposed to be about fairness, there are people who might have their own agendas.
It definitely makes you stop and think about who to believe and how to navigate a world where there's so much information out there and it's not always clear what's true.
Exactly. And I think it's a good reminder to, be empathetic and try to understand that everyone involved in these situations, whether it's the accuser, the accused, or even the lawyers, they're all human beings with their own complexities.
Yeah, a lot to think about for sure. Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about how these allegations, even if they never go to trial, could affect how people see these artists and how the whole music industry might react. All right, so we've got this whole legal mess with accusations and counter-accusations flying around. But something that really gets to me is this, huge power imbalance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got a 13-year-old girl who was allegedly brought to this party with these, mega celebrities. If what she's saying is true, it's hard to even imagine, how intimidating that must have been. Like, how could she even think about speaking out against someone like Diddy or Jay-Z?
It's hard to fathom. And I think that's why this case is so important, even for those of us who aren't in the music industry, right? Because these power dynamics, they're everywhere. You see them in workplaces, schools, even families.
Exactly. And this case really shows how hard it can be for someone to come forward when they're up against, a person with a lot of money and influence.
Makes you wonder how many other stories are out there, right? How many people have experienced something like this but felt like they couldn't say anything.
Yeah, it's a sad thought. And it speaks to a bigger issue in our society. We need to be creating environments where people feel safe to speak up, no matter who they're accusing.
And even if these specific allegations against Diddy and Jay-Z are proven false, the fact that they're out there, it changes things. It makes people look at the whole music industry and wonder if there's maybe something in the culture that allows this kind of behavior to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. And honestly, it goes beyond just the music industry. We've seen similar things happen in Hollywood and politics, you name it.
Right. It's not just about individual bad people. It's
Yeah.
about the systems that are in place, the structures that can actually protect abusers and silence victims.
Exactly. It's about all of us taking a hard look at the power structures in our own lives and thinking about how we can create a culture of respect and accountability where everyone feels safe.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic,
Yeah.
but it's a conversation that needs to happen. We've been focusing on how this impacts regular people, but what about the music industry itself? What if these allegations are true? Like, how could that change the way we see these artists and their music?
That's a really interesting question. It really comes down to how we separate the art from the artist. Can you still listen to someone's music knowing they've been accused or even convicted of a serious crime?
It's a tough one. A lot of us have had to deal with that in recent years with all the different scandals involving, musicians and actors. I don't think there's an easy answer.
No, it's a very personal decision. And it's not just about the individuals either. Think about what could happen to the music industry as a whole. It could change how record labels choose artists, how the media reports on these kinds of stories, even how fans engage with the music.
It could also, inspire a whole new generation of artists and people in the industry who are committed to doing things differently, more ethically.
Right, that's what we hope for. That we can learn from all this and move towards a future where everyone feels safe, respected, and empowered.
This has really been thought-provoking. But I think it's important to acknowledge, this case is pretty messy. We've got conflicting stories, accusations of extortion. It might leave some people feeling, I don't know, maybe confused or even skeptical.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's hard to know what to believe when you have these huge names involved and everyone's pointing fingers.
For sure. But I think that's all the more reason to remember, the human element here. These are real people whose lives are being affected by all of this.
Absolutely. No matter what happens in the courts, this is having a real impact on everyone involved. The accuser, the accused, their families. It's a huge emotional toll.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that these aren't just abstract legal cases. They involve real people and have real consequences.
Right. And it's important to approach these situations with, empathy and understanding, recognizing that it's complicated and there's a human cost involved.
Absolutely. Well, we still need to wrap things up and offer some final thoughts.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all the legal drama and forget about the real people involved. Absolutely. It's important to remember that this isn't just some isolated incident. For every big case like this that makes headlines, there are so many others with regular people just like you who are dealing with these same issues of power, consent, and, trying to get justice.
Right, and that brings us back to what we've been talking about, how this whole situation impacts everyone.
Exactly. Whether you follow music or not, this case raises some really important questions for all of us. Like, how do we deal with these kinds of accusations against people we might admire? How do we create a culture where survivors feel safe coming forward? How do we make sure everyone, no matter who they are or how much money they have, has access to a fair system?
These are big questions, and there are no easy answers. But I think one of the most important things we can do is to just keep talking about it.
I completely agree. We need to keep having these conversations about power dynamics, consent, accountability, and we need to listen to survivors, believe them.
Because at the end of the day, creating a world where everyone feels safe and respected, that starts with each of us, right? It starts with recognizing those power dynamics in our own lives, calling out bad behavior when we see it, and supporting people who have been hurt.
That's a great point. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground today. We started with these shocking accusations against Diddy and Jay-Z, then we got into all the legal stuff that came after, and we talked about what this all means for the music industry and for society as a whole.
We talked about power, about the challenges of getting justice, about the importance of believing survivors, and how all these things affect everyone, not just celebrities.
We definitely didn't shy away from the tough questions.
Perfect.
Hopefully this has given everyone something to think about.
So as you go about your day, ask yourself, what can you do to make the world a little more fair, a little more just? How can you help create a culture where everyone feels safe and respected?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.